Welcome to Barnstable Today. I'm Nick Cortez, and it's time once again to take a look back on the most interesting and informative discussions of this past week on our daily talk show, Barnstable This Morning. Barnstable Police Chief Paul McDonald kicks off our highlights again this week. On Tuesday, May 17th, the chief spoke with us about the newly created Street Crime Unit, staffed by Barnstable and Yarmouth officers, the Barnstable County Sheriff's Department, and the State Police. The group targets problem neighborhoods, not only in Barnstable, but throughout the Mid-Cape. And as you'll hear, the Street Crime Unit is already making a big difference.
The Street Crime Unit, when we look at the Part 1 crimes, this is how the FBI gauges the level of crime throughout the country. The Part 1 crimes, the murders, the rapes, the robberies, the aggravated assaults, the burglaries, the larcenies, and the motor vehicle thefts. These Part 1 crimes, they've gone down over the last several years. They've continued to decline. But what's noticeable and obvious is the level of violence used in the commission of certain crimes, usually but not always, the violence associated with the use in distribution and trafficking in illegal narcotics. And this level of violence, coupled with the increased media coverage, has had a detrimental effect, we think, the police department thinks, on the welfare and the quality of life for the residents of Barnstable. So with all that, we sat down, 6 months ago, what can we do? How can we do something about this? The appearance that crime is as bad as people think it is, especially in the village of Hyannis. So we came up with the idea of a street crime unit. And the reason we did this, because when you deploy a marked unit into a particular neighborhood to try to solve a particular problem, that marked unit becomes a slave to the radio. He has to answer his call for service. A lot of times he goes in, he starts working on a particular problem, and we have to call him away.
Yep.
So we want to have a dedicated team of officers that can go in there, look at a problem, see what has to be done, and take care of the problem. As we're going through the planning stages, what makes this team really very, very unique is that other departments have expressed interest and they want to get involved in it because they understood what we were doing, who we were going after, and they feared that we're probably going to start displacing some of our problems into their towns. So with that, we work with the Sheriff's Department, we work with the Yarmouth Police Department, we work with the District Attorney's Office, and we work with the Mass State Police. So the unit became activated last week, and right now we have 4 Barnstable police officers from the patrol force and from detective divisions assigned to the unit. 2 officers from the Yarmouth PD will be starting June 1st. We have 2 deputy sheriffs, and we have a state trooper assigned to the unit now, and they're already up and running, and they've already been deployed out in the town for the past week. And I have to tell you, they've only been out the road 8 days, and they've already made 12 arrests for distributions of Class B through E in the area of Main Street and C Street, Hyannis. So they're already making a huge impact out there.
Later on the Tuesday program, our weekly conversation with State Senator Dan Wolf focused on his work with the state's redistricting committee, which is working to redraw our congressional boundaries according to the 2010 federal census. Earlier this week, Senator Wolf attended a redistricting public hearing in New Bedford, and while that city is not a part of our district, it once was, and it's possible that it may be again. Here, the senator tells us what he took away from that hearing.
Well, so far we've heard, as it relates to New Bedford, that the representation of Barney Frank is something that they don't want to lose, and we heard that from Fall River as well. Most of the testimony we heard last night was either Fall River or New Bedford. There wasn't a lot in between. And there was nobody there from my district, from the Cape and Islands district, sort of talking about what the impact might be if New Bedford gets sort of grouped back in with the Cape and Islands. And I've heard positive and negative about that. From the fishing communities, I've heard some concern that the fishing issues are different as they relate to New Bedford than they are as they relate to the Cape and Islands. And that's not to say necessarily that the same person present both the different interests. But we do need to sort of understand the nuances between the two.
Sure. Now, obviously, the major nut here that needs to be cracked is the fact that we're losing a seat in Congress, and based on what I've heard or haven't heard so far, none of the incumbents have an especially strong desire to step down and make your job easier. So with that in mind, are you operating under the assumption that you're not going to have a more senior member of Congress say, okay, I've had enough, you can kind of take my district and use that to be the first domino? What are you... How are you planning, considering that you haven't heard anything like that so far?
Well, we have a lot of time for that to play out. I mean, Congressman Oliver in the western part of the state, I think, is 74 years old. And we are not really going to have to deal with that potential issue until the fall sometime.
The town's fiscal year 2012 operating budget took center stage this week as the town council began its annual series of budget public hearings on Thursday night. Earlier that day, Finance Director Mark Milne joined us to explain some of the major features of the administration's budget proposal. So this is the first page of general fund budget highlights, and basically what this page says to me is that this budget is balanced, there's no layoffs, and overall we're not looking at the type of fiscal situation that many other towns across the Commonwealth are right now, and that is a much more difficult situation.
Yes. Yeah, we were conservative with our revenue estimates, so we actually have some budget capacity built into this budget. The state aid looks to be like it may come in better than what we were anticipating, but even with that lower estimate on state aid, we have no layoffs, predominantly because we took advantage of the early retirement program, and 6 positions are going out under that program. We're only bringing 3 back, as we are limited under that program as to what we can backfill. So, in essence, we're losing 3 positions, but we do not believe it will impact the level of services, and that has helped us balance this budget and actually build a little bit of budget capacity so that when we get into building the 13 budget, we're starting from a positive standpoint. We also have some significant reductions in our utilities. Natural gas, the cost of natural gas and the cost of electricity have gone down. The Cape Light Compact rebid the electricity contract this fiscal year, and new rates came into effect January 1, 2011. Those rates are good for 3 years. So we're seeing significant reductions in our utility costs around electricity. And natural gas the market for natural gas right now is really low, and we're in the process of locking that contract in, too, for an extended period of time because we've seen it bottom out. Consuming some of those reductions in costs, we are seeing a significant increase in fuel costs, of gasoline and diesel, so that is eating into some of that savings, but not all of it. We still have about $100,000 of savings net between utilities and fuel cost increases, and that is helping us build that structurally balanced budget.
Memorial Day weekend is just 1 week away, and that means that weekends out on Sandy Neck are about to get much more crowded. Fortunately, this year, beachgoers and ORV drivers will have the luxury of a brand new bathhouse at Sandy Neck, which, in all likelihood, will be open to the public on that first big weekend of the summer, according to Sandy Neck Beach Park manager Nina Coleman. She spoke to us about it on Friday, May 20th.
Well, I mean, we're really just down to punch list stuff, and of course, all the occupancy permits and all of those type of items. But really, I would say it is complete, and we're just putting the last finishing touches on it.
Excellent. So, what is left to be done when you're talking about a punch list?
You know, a little landscaping, a little fencing. I can see you got the pictures up right now. There's some interior stuff that still needs to be put in. You know, really just down to like installing the toilet paper roll holders and the and the soap containers. You know, when you get to this point, you think, we're almost done, but then it's just a million little things.
All right, but obviously the construction is basically complete, and this is a picture from earlier in the stages of construction. But I have to tell you, just seeing the images, it looks absolutely beautiful. A huge, huge upgrade.
It is a very beautiful building. I'm getting a lot of positive feedback. Very pretty, you know. It is a bathhouse. I get it, you know, but it is Sandy Neck as well. It's kind of the central location for this huge property and all that we have to offer here. So I do think it needs to be a little extra special, and that's what we achieved.
So concession opening, when are you anticipating that happens?
Well, we're still planning on having the restrooms and the concessionaire in on the Memorial Day weekend.
Okay.
Again, a million things to do between now and then, most notably getting all our permits in order, but those are all supposed to be done next week.
Okay.
So I hesitantly say that we will be ready to rock and roll on Saturday of next week.
Remember, you can watch full-length episodes of Barnstable This Morning anytime you'd like online. Check them out in the town's video archives at town.barnstable.ma.us. Well, that's all for now. Everybody have a great weekend. I'm Nick Cortez, and we'll see you next time on Barnstable Today.